We are diving back into the House of M today with Uncanny X-Men 464. And I gotta say, as much as I enjoyed the House of M main story arc, I never read this when it first came out. So going back, I'm actually enjoying this a bit more because it just sort of continues to expand and build this universe, which makes it that much more enticing. Now, if you want to read what's been going on, feel free to pause the video and read this at your convenience. And moving along. What happened last issue, spoilers if you've not read this, so make sure to pause this video, go check out the reviews we've done thus far, or get the books, and you're back. Rachel and Psylocke were saved from Wanda's reality-altering powers by going into like the bosom or the womb of the Phoenix, which they called the White Hot Room. And so their memories weren't affected by what happened. However, once they left, they succumbed to this new reality. They had no idea of their past lives. All they know is that Betsy is the princess of... I'm not sure what Brian Braddock's world's called. I know it's in the last issue, but I can't remember for the life of me. But anyway, he's sort of a sovereign nation against Magneto, who rules the world in this reality. So she is the princess. He's the king. Jamie, of course, we'll talk more about Jamie Madrox here in a moment. But what happens is there's the Marauders, which is led by Callisto. There is someone on the loose that threatens Magneto's power, essentially. And so you come to find out that it's TJ, the alternate reality daughter of Kurt Wagner. So Rachel and Betsy, being who they are trying to save her. And that's kind of where this story picks up, and they are in the clutches of Black Tom Cassidy. Now, I always forget where they put... Oh, it's right here. Okay. The credits. So this is To Die For. And I miss when artists would implement the title into the picture just to kind of make it the whole aesthetic seem pleasing. I just always enjoyed that. So this is Chris Claremont writing along with the artist Chris Buccolo, which will Bachelot. If you guys know how to properly pronounce his name, help me out, because I always say Buccolo, Bachelot. I can never pronounce it right. This is Seasons of the Witch, Part 3 of 4. This is Erwin Mendoza, Olazabaya, and Rapun and Vey doing inks. A lot of inkers. Studio F doing colors. VC's Corey Petit doing the lettering. And then there's everyone else working on the book. And then, of course, the X-Men were created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. So TJ is kind of essentially saved by Rachel. She kind of like absorbs her or like possesses her. It's an interesting little bit. And we see, I always want to call her Rachel, Betsy going, "Stand down, Marauders. There's nobody but the Princess Royal of the realm and her companion." And then the person that tracked him down is Caliban. He goes, "Caliban does not believe you. The girl's here. I can smell her." Now, one thing about, and this is what I was talking about with Bacalo, I can appreciate his artwork to a degree. Like on Generation X, don't get me wrong, that always kind of just gave that book this whole edgy vibe. But when we go to the main book, Uncanny, the longest running of them all, or X-Men, which was like the second, I guess, or New Mutants, so it'd be the third. Anyway, you guys get my point. I want something that's a little more clean, I guess. So you'd think like Dave Cockrum, John Byrne, and even I'd take John Romita Jr. But for all the years that we've read X-Men, when have we ever seen Caliban look like a Hellraiser / Ragdoll? And that's just, for me, is not pleasing to the eye whatsoever. And then the same here where Rachel, see, again, Betsy's holding her sword. The angle is so off. I mean, she's just standing there. It looks so damn flat. I wish it was more like a Dutch angle and we were looking up at her, if you guys kind of get what I'm talking about. Or something, but just this full-on page just gives it no depth whatsoever. So that this gator, I'm not sure who this guy in the background is, it feels flat to me. So those are my gripes. But other than that, I'm okay with it. Especially when, one thing where Bacalo really shines, and we saw that in Generation Next, the Age of Apocalypse miniseries, or the event, and then the 4-part Generation Next miniseries within the Age of Apocalypse. He's great with monsters. So, you know, Rachel and Betsy are playing this gambit to try to save TJ. And I love how Black Tom Cassidy here is just like, No manners 'tit all worth the name. Black Tom Cassidy. How nice 'tis to be recognized. I wonder if you taste as good as you look. And he just looks absolutely freaking terrified. And that's one thing that I can definitely dig about this book. But anyway, battle ensues. So we get kind of the build-up of what the story is supposed to be, and then action. And what I like is you realize that Rachel's not really listening to Betsy after they're able to kind of at least get away from the Marauders for the moment, and she just takes off, which I've never in my life seen Betsy fly. So I don't know if it's because her and Rachel share some sort of like psychic rapport like Scott and Jean do, or Danny and Rain, but she just starts flying. After her, there's a great tense moment between Captain Britain and Calypso. Now, what's awesome to me, once we get past all... Well, here's a little funny bit real quick. I love that to show how fast TJ is using Rachel's body. Shoom, shoom. And then we see this couple here. They're in silhouette here. But then there's shoom. And Bucklow here just kind of at least shows that their skeevies are in the color, and then of course the negative color, just to kind of give it an idea that they're standing in the shadows. Just a fun little bit to show how fast these two X-Men are going. Now we come to find out that because TJ has possessed Rachel, she's saying, I'll fight if I have to, and I'll win. And the way Betsy's just like, okay, girl, it's time to bring you back to your senses. She takes down a whole freaking building on top of Rachel to just show how powerful Betsy is in this reality, where one of the Marauders actually said, I've heard that your TK can bring down mountains. And she said, I'm only hindered by my imagination. So that just shows how powerful Betsy Braddock is and how much she stays her hand in pursuit of Xavier's dream. And I just love that it's put on display here where she doesn't really have those scruples because she grew up being a princess rather than an X-Men. So as the book comes to a close, of course, ads everywhere, they find this lighthouse, and Betsy's talking about these areas. This is where she kind of grew up, and this is where she said that her and her brother Jamie used to play, were in the ruins of this kind of militaristic fort or whatever. Rachel brings it back by noticing the psychic resonance of the rock, so she's able to reconstruct what it looks like. And she says that me and Jamie used to play here. And she goes, if Jamie is supposed to be your older brother, why is he not king? And she says, power runs deep in our family. He got the full measure, the ability to pull the quantum strings that define causality. He got himself so tangled, he'll never twist free. And it just shows how tragic Jamie Madrox can really be when you think about him as a person rather than what he's done in all the X books. Now, again, I like how in this reality, now we know in the modern X-Men books, Betsy was originally British. And then when she went through the Siege Perilous, her body got swapped with Quanon thanks to, I think it's Shinobi Shaw, the Black King's son. And so she became the assassin. And that's kind of how Psylocke in the main 616 universe kind of became an Asian assassin looking instead of her old British look. Here, this is the way she looks. And Claremont does a great job in the story of stating that this area had an Asian presence to it. And even Rachel says, have you looked in the mirror lately, Princess, to show how the melting pot of this reality. So it's just kind of a nice little way to add that. And then that's where we come into this lighthouse with this thrumming X. And Rachel says it hurts, like something awful, festering. She's like, Betsy, can't you feel it? And she's like, no, but it's too late, because she goes, what is happening to me? And it starts to consume her. And at the same time, Betsy also shares a rapport with her brother, which wakes him up. And he goes, I know him. My older brother, Jamie, he's completely mad. Your fancy toy, she broke. Of course, I remember now. He smashed the celestial nullifier before Saturn could annihilate this entire dimension. And so he finally gets a grasp of what he was originally supposed to do before Wanda completely took over his mind. And I love how he's thinking, am I as mad as my brother Jamie? We see that it's supposed to be McGann that smacks him, and it's freaking Jamie saying, the lady gave you 48 hours. Get your act together. Time is almost up. And then, when Brian realizes he needs to do something, he is visited by Magneto's cronies, I guess is the best way to put it, because he told Callisto and all of them to flee from his realm because TJ had come into his realm, so it's his sovereign nation. But Magneto's just kind of the jackass that he was once upon a time ago. And so this is where we see the Omega Sentinel, Carmina Shipander, is that how you pronounce your last name? But she's sort of like the head of security and the Sentinels in this reality. And we can start to see a war starting to brew between Magneto and this land that Brian Braddock protects. And you feel all these boiling points because Betsy, Rachel, Brian, they realize that everything's not as it seems. And so they don't know what to do. They feel like they're going mad themselves, but they don't have time to think about it with the Marauders and Magneto closing in, a war on the horizon. So that's why I said I think I enjoy this a lot more than the House of M, because it's Claremont. He knows how to write the X-Men, and in true fashion, he uses his characters that he developed through the years. And that's why I think it's special. Chris Bachalo's art, once you can kind of get past it and appreciate what he's done, even though it may seem a little off in a primary X-Men book, it is entertaining, and I will say that at least the artwork, with all that said, is better than a lot of modern artwork. And we're not going to get into that. We talked about that with other books. So if you've enjoyed what you've seen, please, first and foremost, support your local comic shop or wherever there's going to get your action figures and comics, and grab this series, as well as the main House of M title. If you've enjoyed this review, really would appreciate if you take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Helps the channel more than you could possibly know. And if you won't mind hitting that fancy little M bell next subscribe, that way as I continue to upload content, you guys get notified. Come to the channel, and I love talking with y'all and hearing your thoughts and feedback down in the comments or the socials, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description. So with all that said, hope y'all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, everyone.